Ukraine reclaimed Kupiansk after Russian defeat. December 29th, 2025. I'm Alex.
And I'm Aria.
Join us for a sharp, no-nonsense breakdown of the latest in global defense news, military technology, and strategic developments. And today, we're going to cover the absolute collapse of a major military narrative that, well, it rocked Moscow in the final weeks of 2025.
Subscribe to Defense Reports, your go-to source for timely, in-depth military and defense reports.
Okay, let's unpack this. Our listener wants a deep dive into the current military situation, and we've got the sources to do it. We're looking at detailed military assessments, geolocated evidence right from the front line, and even excerpts from high-level political speeches.
And our mission today is really to cut through that fog of information warfare. We're going to expose where the battlefield reality diverged so sharply from official claims that it ignited a crisis in the Russian command structure itself.
It's fascinating, right? We're looking at this crucial period in late 2025 where a Russian victory narrative, one that was being publicly touted, even used in peace talks, was just, exposed as completely fragile.
It's a masterclass in what we call informational impact. The story they were telling became more important and more damaging than the actual reality on the ground.
We're going to zero in on the strategically critical Kupiansk sector. And stick with us, because we'll cover how a major Ukrainian counteroffensive dismantled a victory declaration just weeks after it was made.
Which then led to this assessment that a, quote, purge of the senior officer corps is underway in Moscow.
And we'll dive into the new tactics of cognitive warfare. We're talking sophisticated, fake, flag-raising videos, and something even more shocking.
The idea that military command was blatantly lying to the highest leadership, that's where this story really goes from a tactical failure to a structural one.
Let's start with the centerpiece of this whole puzzle, Kupiansk. The Russian offensive there has been, grinding on since late November 2024. Can you walk us through the timeline that led up to this fictional victory?
Certainly. So the offensive kicked off November 28, 2024. And through early 2025, they saw slow but, definite progress. Russia managed to establish bridgeheads across the Oskil River, specifically in the areas of Dvorchna and Novomlinsk.
And that initial momentum was critical for them, wasn't it? It gave them something to build a story around.
Exactly. It gave them a narrative, even if the strategic depth just wasn't really there yet.
And that narrative peaked precisely when the claims got the loudest.
That's it. The high watermark of these Russian claims came on November 24, 2025. The Russian Ministry of Defense officially announced the complete capture of Kupiansk.
Mission accomplished, basically.
That's what they said.
But the sources we have, all this battlefield analysis and geolocated evidence, they show a huge disconnect right at that moment. Just how far off was that official declaration from the truth?
It was wildly off. At the moment they claimed complete capture, the actual battlefield status showed that Russia controlled only approximately 55 to 60% of the urban building.
So not even two-thirds of the city.
Not even. And controlling half a city, especially when the key city center is still contested, that's not a capture. Ukrainian forces still had effective defensive positions and were actively pushing back.
And the timing here is just incredible. The victory narrative was already in full swing just as the reversal was about to happen.
The irony is it's deeply layered here. The disconnect peaked with the awarding of high honors on December 9th, 2025.
Just 2 weeks after the false victory acclaim.
Right. Colonel General Kuzovlev was awarded the prestigious Hero of Russia for his supposed success in Kupiansk. And that award, based on a completely faulty report, it cemented the victory narrative internally.
So they locked in the official story just before the map changed completely. What happened on the ground right after that?
The decisive moment came just 2 days later. On December 11th and 12th, a major Ukrainian counteroffensive struck the Kupiansk sector. And this wasn't a skirmish. It was a focused, powerful operation.
And the result?
Immediate.
Yeah.
Ukrainian forces recaptured the city center and 3 surrounding villages.
And the most significant consequence of that?
It led to what's being reported as the collapse of the Russian western bridgehead. That loss completely reversed the strategic gains they'd made over the previous year. It just exposed the November 24th claim as entirely fictional.
And we have hard evidence of this reversal, right? Not just claims.
Oh, absolutely. Geolocated footage, which was published by December 24th, confirmed Ukrainian forces were firmly established in central and western Kupiansk. The consensus now is that Ukrainian forces have liberated most of the city.
Which is a huge tactical win, but it's more than that.
It's a massive strategic win. It has significantly slowed Russian efforts to create a buffer zone in Kharkiv Oblast.
Okay, that makes perfect sense. The scale of this defeat and the fact that it unraveled such a public victory, it demanded some kind of response. But instead of fixing the line, it seems the command chose to just escalate the battle for perception.
And this brings us to what our sources are calling cognitive warfare. And this is where you see the really sophisticated layer of deception. Cognitive warfare isn't just propaganda. It's the systematic use of information to manipulate perception and decision-making.
And a primary tool in that effort is the flag raising. Explain how that works tactically.
Well, they're basically trying to weaponize open source intelligence, or OSINT, which analysts all over the world use to track frontline changes.
So they know people are watching.
They know. The tactic involves a small group raising a Russian flag in, say, an abandoned corner of a village, publishing the footage quickly, and then hoping that OSINT mappers will mark that entire settlement as captured.
So it artificially creates the impression of these broad, sweeping advances.
Far beyond what their actual troop presence supports. And the sources show they've become much more professional at this.
How so?
We saw a new level of sophistication in December 2025. These flag-raising videos are no longer just simple snapshots. They are, and I'm quoting, more complex and higher production edited montages. Yeah, showing these small, scattered groups of 2 or 3 soldiers in places like Myrnarod or Huliaipol to imply they've seized the entire place.
And they used these same tactics in Kupiansk.
Exactly, to try and prop up that false Ministry of Defense claim. It's a coordinated campaign designed to influence everyone, from international opinion to, critically, their own leadership.
And this deception, this is what led to that unprecedented internal crisis. When the Kupiansk reversal became undeniable, influential Russian mill bloggers, who are often this unofficial channel for hardliners, they started aggressively blaming the Ministry of Defense.
And for outright lying. This is the crucial insight. The lying wasn't the problem for them. The exposure of the lying was the structural threat.
Right.
One prominent mill blogger stated it explicitly, that the command was blatantly lying to the very, very top.
And he's directly referring to Putin.
He is.
So wait, if the Supreme Commander-in-Chief can't trust his own general's battlefield reports, then the entire vertical of power is compromised.
Exactly. And that is why the Kupiansk defeat is seen internally not just as losing a few kilometers of land, but as a crisis of governmental control.
It's a systemic failure.
If the entire reporting structure is based on lies, how can you possibly make sound strategic decisions? It exposes a deep fragility within their whole military-political apparatus.
Yeah.
It's far more dangerous than just losing one city.
That completely shifts the narrative from a simple setback to a fundamental organizational failure. Let's pivot now to Russia's broader strategic weakness, especially when you measure it against their high ambitions. Their stated goal is still establishing these vast buffer zones in Sumy, Kharkiv, and Dnipropetrovsk oblasts, regions way outside the illegally annexed territories.
And that ambition just clashes head-on with their operational reality.
Yeah.
Russian advances are, to put it mildly, slow and grinding.
Yeah.
They're optimized almost entirely for positional warfare, not for rapid maneuver.
Their forces are just highly constrained. The Seversk example really puts this glacial pace into perspective. I mean, Seversk is a small town. The sources say Russian forces took 41 months. That's over 3.5 years.
Unbelievable.
Just to advance roughly 12 kilometers to the western edge of that one small town. You could walk that in a couple of hours.
And that comparison is so important. It shows that even tiny territorial gains require this enormous, disproportionate expenditure of time and resources.
Which leads directly to a key tactical dilemma for them, force concentration.
It does. Russia can only really make gains when they concentrate huge forces in a single sector, like mobilizing the 35th and 5th Combined Armies around Huliaipol to get those localized tactical advances.
But this laser focus creates dangerous vulnerabilities everywhere else, and that's something Ukraine has shown a brilliant ability to exploit.
Precisely. That prioritization left nearby areas critically exposed. In the Oleksandrivka direction, for example, while Russia was focused elsewhere, Ukrainian units liberated 5 settlements: Orestopol, Novoselivka, Sosnivka, Korosha, and Voron. And that was during a sustained operation lasting over 100 days. They sacrificed control over a wide area for one localized gain, which Ukraine then just counteracted with strategic patience.
This tactical adaptability on the Ukrainian side, it just underscores the need for continued support and investment in their defensive innovation. They're providing crucial lessons for Europe's own security.
Absolutely. The Ukrainian offensive innovation is creating real solutions against Russia's asymmetric advantages. For instance, they've launched serial production of the Octopus interceptor drone.
What's special about that?
It's designed specifically to work in environments saturated with Russian electronic warfare and at low altitudes to counter threats like the Shahed-type drones.
And we're seeing European companies directly integrating these lessons. The Atreid drone wall system sounds fascinating. It uses FPV drones, AI, 3D maps, and it can operate without GPS. Why is that so critical right now?
Because Russia relies so heavily on electronic warfare to jam or spoof GPS signals, it renders standard guided munitions or commercial drones useless. So by developing systems that navigate using AI and terrain maps, Ukraine is building resilience against this primary tool of Russian aerial suppression. And these innovations, they provide crucial insights for Europe's defense against what the sources call phase zero threats.
Those gray zone destabilizing actions like drone incursions into European airspace?
Exactly. So these technical advancements aren't just about Ukraine. They're about developing the blueprints for a modernized European defense that can actually withstand current Russian tactics.
Moving to the diplomatic arena, the Kupiansk reversal wasn't just a military embarrassment. It had immediate geopolitical ripple effects. It weakened Moscow's hand at a really critical moment.
The timing was brutal for the Kremlin. The reversal fundamentally disrupted Russia's strategy right before high-stakes diplomacy, specifically that December 28th meeting between international leaders.
They were discussing aid and peace parameters.
Right. And Russia's plan was clearly to sell a captured Kupiansk as undeniable military leverage during those negotiations, especially regarding their favored 20-point peace plan.
But by taking Kupiansk back, Ukraine neutralized that leverage. They essentially removed Russia's trump card just before the hand was dealt.
That's a perfect way to put it. It explains the sheer internal rage in the Kremlin over a military failure that became a diplomatic crisis. A negotiation begins with where you are now, and claiming a key regional hub would have profoundly weakened Kyiv's stance.
So Moscow had to negotiate from a position of informational weakness.
He did.
Now, in contrast to all these battlefield and diplomatic woes, Putin was simultaneously promoting a strong economic narrative at home. We have to look at this counter-narrative. What figures was he touting in his December 2025 address?
Well, he presented several figures designed to show resilience against sanctions. He claimed 1% GDP growth in the last year, but a massive 9.7% growth over the previous 3 years.
Which he contrasted against the Eurozone's slower growth.
He did. He also highlighted inflation falling to around 5.7% and a historic low unemployment rate of 2.2%.
On the surface, those are impressive numbers for a sanctioned economy. But what's the crucial nuance here?
The nuance is everything. The numbers look good, yes, but that stability came at a cost. Putin himself admitted that slowing economic growth was a deliberate step.
Deliberate.
A deliberate choice made specifically to maintain those macroeconomic indicators, primarily to keep inflation from spiraling. They're essentially throttling the engine to prevent it from overheating.
And that suggests some underlying financial constraints.
It does. And the most telling detail is that the government had to raise the value-added tax, the VAT, to balance the budget.
Which is a clear sign.
It's a clear sign that the state needs to find immediate revenue to cover its massive expenditures. It directly challenges that narrative of effortless economic stability.
So what does this all mean? This accumulation of failures, informational, strategic, diplomatic, what does it mean for the landscape heading into the new year?
The core learning from Kupiansk is that its strategic value was never just about geography. It was about information dominance. And that's a battle Russia decisively lost in mid-December.
And crucially, the integrity of the Russian command structure is now compromised. There's demonstrated lying to the Supreme Commander-in-Chief. That's a vulnerability that affects every single strategic decision they make from here on out.
And finally, their military capacity is constrained. It is limited to these painfully slow, grinding advances achieved only through unsustainable force concentration, which always creates vulnerabilities that Ukraine can and will exploit.
The ongoing internal conflict within the Russian leadership, exposed by the Kupiansk crisis, suggests that the biggest threat to Moscow's long-term war effort might not be on the external front line, but within the walls of the Kremlin itself. If a leader cannot trust the map his generals hand him, what does that mean for their ultimate strategy? That's a question for you to mull over.
You've been listening to Defense Report by Alex and Aria, where we analyze the latest in military strategy, global defense, and advanced weaponry.
Subscribe to Defense Reports, your go-to source for timely, in-depth military and defense reports. We'll catch you next time.